Hey guys, it's me again, the Obsidian Pixie, and this is my MonsterAthon Wrap Up video. You'll notice we're in a little bit of a different space today. Instead of doing this in the library, I'm trying to do this in the living room today, just because we've got some beautiful late fall sunshine coming in. I want to enjoy it, and the library doesn't get its sunshine until a little bit later in the day. So, for MonsterAthon, the first prompt we had to do was Classic Creepers, read a book with a classic horror monster. I read New Moon by Stephanie Meyer. As I'm sure you're all aware, New Moon, vampires, werewolves, things like that. I've read it before. You know, it's a good book, not my favorite, but there we go. What Big Eyes You Have, read a book that's over 400 pages. I read Shadow Moon by George Lucas and Chris Claremont. This is kind of a sequel to the movie Willow, the first book in a trilogy. It is absolutely incredible. It's fascinating to hear about the things that happen in the world after the events of the movie. And it's just such a rich, wonderful, well-told story. I really enjoy this trilogy. I've read them before. I will most definitely be reading them again. For Chimera, a book that fits multiple genres. I read Guinevere by Mercedes Lackey. It's kind of a retelling, kind of high fantasy. It's kind of a spin-off because it was kind of inspired by the Mists of Avalon books by Marion Zimmer Bradley, who was a friend of Mercedes Lackey. And yeah, I'd read it once before, but it was quite a while ago. I didn't remember really anything from it. So it was really interesting to read it again. And it was good, but again, it's probably not one of my favorite of her books. Although I do highly recommend pretty much anything in her Valdemar series. The Real Monsters, a book featuring monstrous humans. I read A Time to Kill by John Grisham. I've read this book numerous times before. I have also seen the movie numerous times. Actually, I read the book and then watched the movie this month. So it's about the trial of a man who kills the men that have brutally attacked his daughter, and you know, the whole process of that involves a lot of things like the Klan, like the Ku Klux Klan, and there's a lot of different kind of monstrous humans in this book. Unsightly, read a comic, manga, or graphic novel featuring a monster. I read Jim Henson's The Storyteller Dragons. The Storyteller by Jim Henson was a TV show in the late 80s, early 90s, if I remember correctly. It was 9 episodes. Each one was basically a different folktale, retold through Jim Henson's incredible storytelling and puppetry. And they did the original Storyteller, which was more fairy tale type folk tales. They did the Storyteller Greek Myths, which was obviously Greek myths. And they've done a couple of the graphic novels since then. This one is Dragons, and it's, I think, 4 different stories, and they were all about different kinds of dragons. There was the more Oriental style dragon, the more snake style dragon. There was a more Native Americans style dragon. It was very fascinating to look at the different perspectives on the same kind of creature. Angry Mob, a book recommended by more than one person. As soon as I asked for a recommendation, everybody I talked to told me about this book, 12 Kingdoms of Sherakai. It was really fascinating. It is the first book in a series, so I definitely want to look at trying to find the rest of the series. I can't really explain what it's about because honestly I'm not sure that I know yet. It's about a girl named Cheda, and she's trying to bring down the rule of these 12 immortal kings, and it kind of feels like she's just getting into that by the end of the book. So yeah, definitely interested in getting the rest of the series and seeing what happens. It was thrilling. I read this very quickly. Sacrifice, a book you've seen in an unhaul video. I picked Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I saw this in my friend Septima's unhaul video. I did have it on my shelf already, and I had read it once before. It is the first book in a series. I believe there's 4 books in the series now. I have the first 3, but I'm pretty sure this is the only one I've read. I have also seen the movie for this. I preferred the book to the movie. It's about children with special powers, and they basically live in a time loop in Wales, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's interesting, but not my usual cup of tea. And for group challenges, for haunts, I had to read a book featuring a monster that is dead or undead. I read the Graveyard book. It takes place in a graveyard. Most of the characters are ghosts, therefore they are dead or undead. There is also a vampire who classifies as undead, and ghouls, and I'm not quite sure what you classify them as other than really incredibly strange. For beasts, read a book featuring a monster with plant or animal traits. I read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This is the one where they have mandrakes, and mandrakes are little kind of plants, kind of monsters that they use to make the unpetrifying solution at the end of the book. So yeah, this was my book for beasts. For conspiracies, read a book featuring alien, robot, or sci-fi based creature. I read the last book in the Crystal Singer trilogy, Crystalline by Anne McCaffrey. This book takes place on a planet called, well, part of this book takes place on a planet called Ballybran. Ballybran has a symbiont that people who come to the planet, it becomes part of them, changes their physiology. This book also involves something called a brain and brawn ship, which is kind of a person who's given up their physical body to become kind of the computer system in a spaceship. And this book also includes something called, well, they call it jewel junk, and it's a semi-sentient, or it's a sentient, semi-rock, semi-crystal fluid thing. It's really hard to explain, but it is sentient, so I figured that it also classified as an alien or sci-fi based creature. Then there was our group book, which is Unnatural Creatures. Each of the three groups, the haunts, the beasts, and the conspiracies, had a story from this book to read. I also read the rest of the book just to get my page count up. And yeah, there was a bunch of short stories, and I think one or two of them I'd maybe read or heard before, and most of them I hadn't. A lot of them were very, very strange, although I must say I enjoyed the one in here that Neil Gaiman wrote about the Epicurean Club. That was absolutely fascinating. So that is my MonsterAthon wrap up video, and I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Like, share, and subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Thanks very much.